So now this breakdown feature is perfect, right? So now I got this thing is a super handy chopper. You see me process food earlier, so, right? So okay. So now you got a compact chopper, okay? Let's say you don't want the handle right now, right? Your pack is full. All right, guys, first ever YouTube cut and cook. Let's see here. Oh, that looks delicious. Look at that. Bacon, chicken, noodles. Delicious. Definitely tastes like I made it with my dirty axle. I'm bringing just this and the Brodigan Expedition saw, okay? So I had to make this do everything that those could do, at least the primary uses that those are brought on the show for, right? For the situations, right? So that's why it's got the snare wire cutter here. Once again, my primary emphasis is for this to replace a large cutting knife, an axe, and a shovel. Those are used all the time on the show. In that regard, it had to perform very well, not just decent, it had to perform very well in those areas, okay? If you look at this, the reason that I picked this is, you see how this is centered, okay? This is centered to the blade. So as a shovel, I'm not getting any bias of the blade going too much to one side or another. You know, it's not perfectly centered, but it's well centered enough to where I'm not getting a bias when I'm digging. It's gonna be highly efficient. The more centered it is, the more efficient it's going to be when I thrust down. Just like the shovel, okay? I brought the shovel just so you can see. The shovel was perfectly centered, right? It's perfectly centered, okay? So that way you can dig accurately, and all your energy goes straight down. Versus if this handle was off to the side once and you went down, you'd have more force. If this handle was over more on this side and you went down, more force would be on this side. So when you're digging, it's gonna always want to skate over this way. It's gonna be biased on this side. When you dig, it's gonna want to go like this, or it's gonna want to go like this, right? So the placement of the handle in regards to the blade is very important, okay? So you know, a lot of the UK belly hooks, or even the other, you know, there's so many tools that are built upon this particular blade style. So yeah, the UK bill hook, you know, the Thai machete, just a bunch of them. You know, this isn't like a new thing, okay? So, well, you know, like I bought this on Amazon as a Thai machete, okay? So it's not a new thing. The new thing is the modifications I made on it, okay? So the centering is important, okay? So a lot of those like the UK bill hook and the Thai machetes in general, you see the bias, it's more biased to one side this way, and it's also more biased this way, right? So if I'm wanting to have an efficient wood chopper, it's the same as with the shovel. I need the handle to be centered with the blade, okay? So if you look at these two, you'll notice that the AX-VEL blade is more centered than this blade. Okay, that's why I chose it. It wasn't just random. Okay, so there's a lot of thought into this. So I love bladed weapons. I like throwing tomahawks, throwing sticks, all that stuff. So I'm familiar with what a balanced blade does, the advantages of it. So yeah, just for general use, this works perfect. I mean, I could clear a path. You know, I can cut wood. I can do a lot of things with a blade like this. But why wouldn't you look for a blade that's centered, right? So an axe is centered. Okay, so when you have your downward stroke, it's all straight centered into the blade, so there's no deflection, right? The only deflection is deflection you want to put into it. That's why the blade is longer in the front. Okay, so you don't have to do a lot of wrist articulation for this blade to go in at angles. That's why this blade is longer, is downward bias, right? But it's always centered. Okay, so you need to understand the concept of why certain tools are built the way they are, why they're balanced the way they are. Okay, so it's highly important. Okay, for me, like for alone. Okay, because you gotta remember, I need something that's as balanced as possible because I'm gonna be fatigued. Right? It's, you know, I'm not just going on a day hike. You know, well fed at McDonald's before I went. Right? So I'm like full strength, full cognition. Right? I'm making this in preparation for me being fatigued and not being at 100% physically and mentally. Okay, so the more balanced my tool is, my main use tool, the less likely I am to incur an accident or hurt myself, and it's going to take a lot less energy. Right? So, you know, even the best hunters, like Clay Hayes, right? I mean, I'm not. There's no way I'm going to say I'm a better hunter than Clay Hayes, right? Even a person like him or any other guys that are great hunters, that they were working on a calorie deficit. Okay, so you're starving. So you're basically starving. Okay, and you're cold, or you're hot and you got no water. You know, either way, you're fighting the elements for a long-term stay. You want all the advantages as far as you know, your mental and your physical game, right? You don't want anything that's going to take more skill or exertion than necessary. So if you have a balanced weapon, then you're gonna use up a lot less energy and you're gonna be less prone to injury, right? I'm, you know, they call me Mongol because I'm heavy-handed, right? So you know, even my wife was like, "You're never going to tap," but I could see you hurting yourself, and that's true because I'm not patient, and I want things done quickly, and you know, which is great when I'm 100% cognition. You know, I feel like I'm very effective that way, but not if I'm starving, and not if I'm doing this every day, and life's starting to suck. You know what I mean? The mundane stuff of maintaining myself in camp and all the stuff, that's really going to take its toll on me. Okay, so I need everything to be as highly efficient as possible. That means a balanced blade, a balanced chopping blade, a balanced digging blade. Okay, the two primary purposes of this weapon. Okay, the wire cutter and all that stuff, those are not primary, those are secondary. Okay, so you need to always kind of think in your head, what's my primaries and what are my secondaries? Okay, so that's the design concept of this. Okay, but once I created this, I realized this has so much potential just for my to replace my parang and my axe, because I rarely chop wood that big with this axe, and I also have my Boreal 21 for things that I would normally use this for, because once again, I'm a heavy-handed axe swinger, and I've hurt myself before. So, you know, axe to shin hurts, I'm just telling you. So I can see that this will probably take the place of this on most of my serious expeditions. You know, when I'm doing anything over like a 5-dayer, I'm probably going to take this. Okay, so I'm actually very excited to show you guys the build. And you know, if you guys want a spear point, you know, you don't care about a shovel, and then by all means, you know, figure out how to make the spear point. If you guys just want a UK bill hook and just chop things and grab things with how the UK bill hook is, and you don't care about the balance or anything like that, you know, the bias, all that, and then by all means, you know, definitely make something that works for your particular situation or your preferences. Okay, so that's what's exciting about all of this, is that you guys are able to have input and able to you know, I'm hoping this will encourage you to like think outside the box and then make something for yourself that works for you. Okay, you don't have to make the AX-VEL. You make the tool for your situation and for your preference. All right, so that's awesome. I love hearing all that stuff from you guys. Okay, so I had a lot of people wanting, like, why don't you put a scythe blade, right? So let me show you. Okay, so once again, based on the premise of alone, right? I'm not going to have access to my sharpening files and my work sharp and all that stuff, right? I got to have a blade that's a profile that's super easy to maintain. Okay, so that means I need something. I need either a flat blade or like a convex blade, right? So there's my custom Benchmade. Okay, so at one time I used to just be like just a blade freak, right? So I have $500 blades, and I'm not bragging about it. I'm just saying, like, I know my blades. I've you know, I love all my cheap blades, my Straights, you know, my Gerbers. But I'm just showing you because, you know, I'm not ignorant to like nice blades and nice knives and all this stuff, right? So, you know, this is a convex blade. So the only thing easier I think to sharpen than a fixed blade, I mean a straight edge, is a convex edge, right? So, you know, I can take this, which I found on the ground, right? So you'll see it in the video, right? I can just go like this, right? I could just sharpen it on like a clay pot, a broken clay pot, or whatever I find, right? I could sharpen this like on this, right? So ease of sharpening went into my selection of this blade profile. I have a flat blade, and even has kind of a slight convex to it, and I prefer that because it's super easy to sharpen, right? So if I find a nice block sharp that I could, which I would, you know, on alone, I'd make sure I have all my stations, and I could just sharpen, you know, my blade just like my grandfather used to on his big freaking river rock that he had, right? Just do that. I could do it on here, right? So I can sharpen. I mean, the algae's on there, but once I get that clean off, right, I can sharpen this real easy. I can do this, right, if I have to, right? I can get a rock. It's real easy, real fast, because I'm not trying to survive so I can play with my knives, right? My knives are there to help me survive. So if I have a blade like this, right, the convex, right? So I mean, not convex, but this concave blade, right? Like a sickle or scythe, right? It's much more complex to do a quick sharpening, right? Because now you gotta like go and with this bend in here, right? So you need to be very careful to make sure as you're bending it out, you're not changing the blade angle and messing up your sharpening, right? So you're gonna have to go like this and go like this, right? So even if this was a big blade, you still have to exert twice as much time and care to sharpen a blade like this. So yeah, these are great for definitely brush clearing and grasses and increasing your inertia for a big swing. But I don't want something that is going to be more time consuming and complex than a straight edge, you know. And yeah, it's not a lot more complex, but it's a complexity. That it's an added complexity, and like I said, you know, if in a situation like alone, I could be out there for months. I don't want to deal with this kind of tedium, because I got to survive, and I got to get my blades got to be sharp quick, and because I'm going to use them all the time. Okay, so there's thought into why I picked this. So I just want you guys to know, like, when you're thinking like, why doesn't he have like a sickle blade? Because once again, my primary purpose for this AX-VEL is to take the place of a shovel, an axe, a machete, or a large processing knife. Okay, and like I said, that's all I'm bringing. Okay, just the saw and this. All right, so this is perfect for that. If this had a sickle blade, almost picked up. So if this had a sickle blade, and then now I'm reducing this usefulness of the shovel. Right now I got almost a perfectly balanced centered shovel blade. Okay, so that's why I made it the way I made it. If you want that sickle blade because you're going to see yourself cutting a lot of tall grasses, or you really want like a real efficient delimber, yeah, I mean a sickle blade that's highly efficient. But once again, on the premise that this is going to be a long-term survival tool that's going to take the place of a shovel and an axe and a machete, this is why I designed it the way I did. But you design yours the way that you want and your preference. So there's no wrong way. If it works for you, that's the right way. So that's one I want to reiterate. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and show you. Right. So yeah, once again, this kind of blade profile, very easy to sharpen. Right. You can go like this. I mean, you do that real easily, right? The shovel blade, same thing, just real easily. Or I would set up camp and just have a big rock and just do just like how my grandfather showed me, right? Just like my grandfather, okay? So just like that, okay? And this is, and it'll stay sharp, and it'll be like a 5-minute process at the most, right? So, you know, I mean, this thing is very sharp, okay? So, you know, so I can just, you know, this rope, right? I can just like that. I mean, that is a hemp rope, okay? And those are really crappy chops, okay? So you can see it's highly efficient, okay? Let's try this little auto test thing, right? I always see this. I've never really tried it. Let me see. So. Okay, so there. I don't know what that proves, but you always see it on YouTube, right? So with the rock, I can get this AX-VEL to really chop things, right? It cuts through 1.5 rope like nothing. Okay. So wood processing, just clearing tabs, all that kind of stuff. It's great for that. Okay, so. That's what I'm talking about as far as design. Okay, so and then look at this, right? So what I'm saying as far as a tool that I'm actually going to decide to just bring along all my longer survival trips or hiking trips, hunting trips, fishing trips, right? So now this breakdown feature is perfect, right? So now I got. This thing is a super handy chopper. You see me process food earlier, so, right? So, okay. So now you got a compact chopper, okay? And let's say you don't want the handle right now, right? Your pack is full. That's why you're looking for just one cutting tool, right? So you decide you're just going to bring this because you'll find a branch and attach it later, okay? So now you got your drill point rifle stud, sling stud, okay, with your sling, right? And you just stick all that in there. Okay, you got this carabiner to do a fail-safe permanent attachment of that, right? And then you got your bag, right? So you can just stick stick it in here. There you go. If you wanted to bring the, this, you can put it in here. See how it fits? This is my 10-day bag. Most people will make this the 3-day bag, but I try to be super efficient. So 10-day bag. So the blade and the handle, okay, are in this bag. Okay. Nobody will know that you have a 2.5 foot or cutting tool in here. Okay. Like that's pretty cool. That's very useful. Okay. So let's say you don't have any more space. Okay, and you just want, and you do just want to eventually, if you need to, you don't see it coming, but if you need to really have lots of leverage or reach, you're gonna go ahead and just get yourself a branch, right? So now you got this blade, and then you're like, well, my bag is full. It's my 10-day bag, but I got like 12 days worth of stuff in there, right? So you can just go ahead and just attach this here, right? So now it's on the outside of your bag. So you have a potentially limitless length blade that you can use should you require all that leverage or that length for any reason. But now you got something that can hang off your bag, okay? And then you have this, which is, not only a sling, but also the drill point, which I just filed down myself, a drill point rifle sling stud, okay? And that goes in your bag, okay? So it just goes in your bag. That's part of the system. Super light, super efficient, okay? Just like that, okay? So this is an exciting creation, and I hope you guys can make one of your own and kind of see the advantages of it. So all you gotta do, okay, put together like that, get my drill point sling attachment, okay, everything's together, okay. And then I don't, this is toolless. I created this whole system to be toolless, okay. You're not going to have a little wrench or your multi-tool or something. This is toolless. This allows you to, this drill point sling stud allows you to use any branch, any piece of wood that you need for the handle. You don't need to like figure out, oh, now how am I going to make the hole if I don't have a knife or whatever, right? So there, now you're set. Well, it was that quick. Yeah, within a minute you got this, okay. So that's the beauty of the system. I'm excited to see the ones you guys build. So yeah, let's get to the to all the fun stuff. I'm just trying to tell you why I made mine the way I made it. I know some of you guys are like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? I wanted to give you the context for this build. Yeah, if you want to do, make a scythe or sickle or put a spear, yeah, by all means do it. If it fits your needs, do it. So yeah, let's go ahead and get this build started, right? Yeah, thanks for being here, guys. I did order a total of 7 blades. 3 of them were like super trash, so I basically just tossed them. These are the only ones that were semi-decent or that were workable. This is a stainless one. I really liked the shape, the size, everything about it. It's just that it's stainless, which means it's gonna be soft, and I mean, for $26 for this much stainless, I knew it was going to be like kind of like junk stainless. So yeah, unfortunately it's really soft. I'll go over how I tested the hardness of these after kind of go over the other stuff on the blades. So yeah, I'm going to go over pros, cons, and then also like why I chose my particular blade over these the 3 blades is competing against. Not to say that one of these blades might not work for you. For example, you're more interested in just say a blade that that can withstand. You want to take it on a boat or something. You want to chop some swordfish or something. You just need a good fish chopper that's not going to be cut into wood. You don't need a 58 Rockwell hardness blade. You just need a blade that's gonna not need a lot of maintenance. So this might work for you. So if you're near lots of water, especially salt water, you know, a big chunk of stainless might be all you need. You know, if you just need to be able to whack a shark or something, and you know, well, don't kill a shark needlessly, but you know, if you legally catch it and eat it, and then you know, this might work. So just saying. I didn't want to try to say their names all the time, so I just went ahead and labeled them with the price that I've seen them as of last week. Hopefully with the Prime days coming up, they might be even cheaper. So as you can see, this build will be super cheap for you guys. Even getting some of the parts that you guys might not have, like the Kydex, for example. So you'll see here. So I gave you guys the specs right here. So that's 0.08 Kydex. So just one piece is $8. They usually sell them in 2 pieces, so you're looking at like $16. But if you're already going to buy the foam, which I've also listed, so I'm going to show you here, okay? So if you're buying the Kydex, you want to buy the foam. You don't necessarily need the foam. You can basically just kind of use a towel and just squish the the Kydex onto the blade that way. But the foam makes it easier. And if you're already going to get the foam, go ahead and get like 2 to 4 pieces. They're cheaper the more pieces you get. That way you can make cool things like this axe sheath, right? I don't know why modern axes come with the most useless sheaths, you know, whether they're like the skimpy little leather ones or like the big one for the plastic one for the fiskers, but you got to just grab it by the handle. The sheath has a handle on it, so what's the point in that? You might as well just grab the axe. And then you can make things like this for a bigger knife. So it's Kydex, once you get into it, it's very fun and it's easy to manipulate. This one I made for my custom bench made here. Okay. So yeah. Oh, helps us put the blade right. Yep. Just like that. I didn't like the blade. I didn't like the sheath that it came with. It was like super bulky. It was like this tactical, really bulky sheath that you can put on your pack or your leg, and it was like twice as thick as this and just like twice as wide. It was just this monstrosity, and I didn't like that. I wanted a kind of a dangler. This knife was big enough to where it was more convenient as a dangler, so I just made a dangler out of it. Get this ThermoForm. So it's $33, right? It's 8 by 12, same size as the Kydex here. And that's all you need. And all I used was a piece of plywood on this end, and then I just used a cutting board on the other end. So you see, this is a really cool looking Texas cutting board, right? So I just kind of taped it. See, just blue tape. Real high tech, right? So basically just all you're doing, which I'll show you later, is you're just heating this up in the oven, 300 degrees, put your knife in it, or your AX-VEL in it, and then you just sandwich it together, and you can either just stand on it for like, 5-8 minutes until it cools and then stays in that form, or you could just put two vice clamps on it. I just use those blue Irwin vice clamps and just clamp it together just like a sandwich. That's it. That's super simple. Yeah, so these blades here, they each have their pluses and minuses. The blade concept for the AX-VEL, I wanted a blade that was balanced and rugged. It needed those two things. And one thing that you find with these blades, they have a tendency to be biased on one side. You see how this is biased on the right side? It's not centered. I didn't want that for a primary chopping blade. And when I say chopping blade, I'm not talking like chopping a tree down. I'm talking just like medium duty chopping, 3-inch branches and things like that. Clearing brush, chopping bone, processing meat, things like that. If need be, I'll chop something big. You saw me chop this chunk of wood here. So if you look at that chunk of wood, you're looking at like a 5-inch piece of wood, right? Even at the most narrow end here, that's like 5-inch. That's a big task for anything other than an axe. Okay, so ideally you'd use a saw, and that's on a lower you know, I'm bringing a saw as well as the AX-VEL. That's it, right? I wouldn't normally use my AX-VEL for that, but I do want the capacity to do it should I need to. So that's the whole concept. I've heard a lot of people mention the UK bell hook. I did a lot of research on those, and that they share the same weaknesses, right? Or the same design parameters, which makes them pretty much all geared towards right-handed choppers. They're all right-hand biased most of the time. These off-center blades, they're off-center because it's easier to make them that way. They're not really designed to be like refined swinging weapons. They might not allow you to give you the most refined action, but they still get the job done, right? So I lined the all the blades up by spine, okay? So I'm just gonna rotate the angle just so you know there's no bias towards how they're laid out. So here we go. So now I bet you guys can figure out which one is AX-VEL, right? AX-VEL is the most centered. That blade is more centered towards the handle than any of these other blades, right? Those are things to consider, like a lot of people won't consider it, but if you ever swung well-balanced weapons, you'll know, like, it makes a difference. Like, if you're gonna be looking for accuracy, full accuracy for a swing, and not just, you know, clearing a jungle, right? And then it helps, you know, but, you know, I mean, you know, for a survival tool, it might not be super important, but a tool in general, if you can get it a more efficient one, why wouldn't you, right? So that's really what I'm getting at. So it's not a deal breaker, but it is going to be a big enough advantage to where I'm going to be grabbing this one, because this one is, as far as balance, this one's going to do it, right? Okay, so another thing is that you need to consider while they're like this, okay, is what do you think is the weakest part of these blades, right? So the weakest component of these blades is going to be right here. So this whole section here. So yeah, that's the weakest part, right? Because it's the thinnest part. It's fighting the you know, it's taking on the full force of a blow right here, because your handle's right here, your blade's here. So you get an off-center strike, you know, it's taking on a lot of sideways motion, and this is the weakest. This little point here where it's already got a bend, right? It's already got a bend. That's the weakest part. So you want to make sure this has enough material to offset the weakness of having this particular weak spot, or, you know, where they hammered out. Basically okay, so these two here, these two blades, AX-VEL and the Conload, they're both hand forged. You can see the forging marks. Yeah, you can see the hammer marks. So these are true hand forged. So on the AX-VEL, they did a really good job. Just hammer it out nicely here. Yeah, you could tell they had to do a little crimping or something, but maybe because they centered the blade so much, they had to kind of make a little crease there to get the blade back in, you know, get the handle centered or the blade centered. So I don't know exactly what the deal was with this particular little crease here, but yeah, I made the mistake of, you see this rib here? This rib is really crucial for reinforcing the weakest part of the structure, which is right here, right? So this is thick. This is really thick, right? So there's a lot of reinforcement here for this to offset the weakness, all the force that would be applied right here, right? So these ribs, when they bend them in, they actually create a reinforcing point. So it's good to have these ribs. And then I made the mistake of, when I made the choil on this, I ground this off. Okay, so if you decide to make a choil, make the choil beyond this point. Okay, like start the choil here and go forward. Don't grind off this section. I grounded off this section here, which it was a twin to this side was a twin to this side. Okay, so I grounded off the reinforcement that would reinforce this little section here. So I shouldn't have done that, right? So I weakened that part by putting this I weakened this section by grinding this channel down, because that channel is basically a reinforcement of this area. So I made it kind of a, I weakened the weakest spot, which is not good. So don't do that. So if you're gonna make a choil, start like right here and go forward. So start like right here, right, and then go forward. So the weakest spot on all these blades is going to be the point where the handle deflects off of the blade. So this whole point, this whole area here, like on this one, right where this groove is, that's gonna be the weakest point. But since it has this reinforcement rib caused by making this handle fold, it's very strong. So the top portion is extra strong. The bottom portion, I unfortunately ground that off. So you see, I grounded it off right where the crease is, right? So had I left the crease there, you would see it would go over here, and so you have a reinforcement channel. I basically ground that reinforcement channel off. So don't do that. So yeah, my next AX-VEL, I will make the choil further and leave that reinforcement rib there, and I won't have any issues. Not that I had any issues with it, but it is a weak spot, and I noticed it. After I did it, I was like, oh, structurally that was not smart. So yeah, so one thing to consider. Okay, so now we covered the centering of the blade to the handle. So I look for that. I think that's important. If you can have it centered, why not have it centered? So that's basically what I'm trying to say. So not a deal breaker, but if you can have it centered, do it, because it'll help with your accuracy of your strikes, manipulation of the blade, as far as twisting left and right to do precise cuts when you're doing a lot of heavy cutting. So something to look for. So back to this little section. Okay, so this blade's pretty beefy, right? Pretty beefy, but this section here is actually quite a bit thinner than like on the AX-VEL, right? So if you look, it's quite a bit thinner. See, so even, yeah, see. So at the weakest points, it's thinner than the AX-VEL. So that's why I say the AX-VEL is superior as far as durability, because it's thick where it counts. And had I not shaved off that reinforcement rib, it would have been even more sturdy. And this one, yeah, this one's kind of nice because they didn't create a crease there. So you don't have that preset sharp crease that would be the weak point. This whole section will be a weak point, but if you crease a piece of metal, it's going to weaken it, right? So that's what I'm talking about. So this one is nice because it doesn't have that, but this one is definitely not hand forged. I think it's just machined, because you can tell by how nicely the handle's done. It's like it was like rolled and formed by a machine, and the blade is not hammered at all. Let's see here. Yeah, so the blade is not hammered at all. Okay. So I'm not sure what process they used, but it does say it's carbon steel. And on the description it says cold steel, but it's not a cold steel product. Okay, people were getting that mixed up reading the reviews. It's not I don't know why they even say cold steel on there, but it's not. It is carbon steel, but it's not hand forged. So I think it's just pressed and cut. I'm not sure how they made it, but the nice thing about being machined, press and cut, or whatever they did with it, is the fact that it's very uniform. Like if you look at the handle formation compared to the AX-VEL, yeah, look at look how uniform that is compared to the AX-VEL. I personally like the hand forged look, that rugged look. Yeah, and for the AX-VEL, I saw that they took it off, but they had a video, and it was actually like this dude in Thailand, with just his shorts on and just hammering away at this. It was like a spring steel, and it said 5160 spring steel when he was hammering on it. And I think this is because even though it's the smallest blade, it's actually the heaviest blade. So I'm pretty sure this is a spring steel of some sort. The way it acts, I think it's 5160, but regardless, I think it's I would bet this is a superior steel than this. So if you look at these two, you can tell they're machined they were done by machine, right? So the handle, look how nicely rolled they are, very uniform. Like Like they're very uniform. Like these folds, they're very uniform. Like a giant machine just rolled the handle. Yeah, so both of these are machined. And then these two, obviously, look how crude the handles are, non-uniform. You know, look at the creases where the handles are. So some dude had to pound away at that. Okay, so these are the two hand forged ones. Okay, so this one here, okay, so now we're going to talk about tapers, right? So look at the difference. Okay, this one for me it was too thinly tapered, so it's got a huge spine. Like the spine is like, I think it's like almost 8.5 millimeters. Okay, the AX-VEL is like 6, and then this is 8.5, right? So the spine is nice and thick, but then it's like pounded down. It's hard to see with the AX-VEL being shovelized, but let me see. I'm just gonna get it, put the AX-VEL there. Okay, so look. Yeah, so hopefully you can see that. Like it's just too fine. Okay. So the way this is so finely tapered, it's great for a machete because it's really light. It feels really good in the hand, just like this. Like I could chop all day. Like this blade profile is like super easy to sharpen, and very light, but it's not very sturdy. Like for one, you can't really baton well with it. You'd run into the same problem I have batoning with the parang. It'd even be worse than the parang, because the parang, if you look at the parang, the parang's actually thicker at the blade, right? So the parang actually has like a double bevel, right? Like it's got a convex bevel, and this one just basically just goes straight down. It just gets thin and goes flat. It's just a flat bevel, right? So great for making super sharp, you know, dicing onions, you know, just cutting brush. Anything heavy, that blade's gonna curl or chip or fold over. So not ideal for an all-purpose weapon, but great for like just a general purpose machete type chopper or processing veggies or something, right? So that's something to consider. Okay. So the stainless one, it's got a great blade profile. It's very similar to the AX-VELs, so it's thick the whole way, and then it just tapers down. And the AX-VEL was tapered like this too, just kind of tapered, and then just straight, and then just a taper. But I gave it kind of a convex grind to make it durable, make it better for wood chopping. So I wanted this. I needed it to be thick the whole way through, and then just shaped to the blade, sharp at the blade area for durability and for batoning. So you need that blade width for batoning. Okay, so this is actually a really nice profile. I really like the spine. So unfortunately, you know, when you get cheap stainless like this, it's going to be really soft. So I'm going to try to reprofile this edge. I'm going to try it the way it is, see how sturdy it is. But I'm betting I'm going to have to reprofile this to have a convex, a steeper blade angle, and also have a convex grind, more like an axe, to make it serviceable. So we'll see. It can be hardened. It is. It's magnetizable, so it should be hardenable. But you know, hardening stainless is way more complex than carbon. So I've never done it, but you know, it's just something to consider if you're wanting to take on a challenge and hardening a blade. It's cheap enough to try. And then this one here, the large guest or whatever it's called, right? So it's got a decent profile. You know, it's not even on both sides, but neither was the AX-VEL. I had to like reprofile it. You know, for $14. I mean, it's no big deal. Just take your grinder to it and just grind it as close as possible. It's not science. I don't really care about like the making it completely even. You know, as long as it chops, it's good, and as long as it holds an edge, it's good. So, yeah, you'll have to probably just reprofile it a little bit, but it's got the right thickness. And then this is powder coated according to them, but it does seem really sturdy, right? See? So look, like I'm hitting that with that, and it's just like, it's not chipping off, it's just like digging in, but it's not chipping off, right? So it's pretty good powder coat, really, for a $14 blade. Okay. All right, and then yeah. So right now I'm just gonna do a real quick hardness test for you guys. Okay. So I'm just gonna use some files, hardness test files. So it's not gonna be like plus or minus 2, you know, 2 HRC or anything, but it just gives you an idea. So I'm just gonna use these hardness testers, these Japanese hardness testers. Everybody uses them on YouTube. They're just you know, inexpensive way to do it. They're like $100, right? But yeah, so basically, if they scratch the metal, and then that means that they're harder than metal. So you basically just kind of see which file starts to scratch. The first file to really leave a scratch, that means you need to go down. So you basically go between the ones that the one that won't scratch and the one that will scratch it. It's in between that. Okay, so this is a 65, right? That's really hard, right? So I'm gonna get my custom bench made. This is like really old. It's I used to, when I was reeling the knives, I had a knife maker actually re-hardened this to like 64 HRC, because, you know, at that time I was like, oh, the, you know, ceramic blades or all this stuff, and I was like, oh, I want like a 65 or 68 hardwell, right? This is S30V, which really shouldn't be going over like 60, but, you know, I was just like, just do it, right? I want a 65, and so he said, all right. So, you know, basically just got it as hard as it could be, right? So this is a 65, right? So theoretically, this should just barely make a scratch. Okay, so I went ahead and polished all these blades to be able to, so we can see the scratches, right? So let's see, right? So you see how it just skates. You know, you'll see on YouTube, and the guys are going like this. They're basically going like this with these files. That's not how they're designed. There's a reason they got this curve, right? You put medium pressure, and you just go like this. It's just medium pressure. You're not trying to saw into it, okay? So this is supposed to be 65. This is supposed to be 64. So this thing's not even making a scratch in it. See, I polished the black off so you guys can see, because you also want to make sure there's no coating on it, because, you know, so some coatings are tougher, some coatings are lighter, but we want to know what the steel is, right? So here, you can just hear it skate off. There's no grinding. Unfortunately, this is as hard as it gets. So, you know, either this isn't 65, right, or this is harder than 64. But I bet you this is 64, and this is probably just like a little bit softer than what it says, because I trust the knife maker more than this. But yeah. So, anyways, yeah, you see that on a Benchmade. This is basically a $450 knife. Once I got done with it, right, almost $500, right? So Benchmade, Osborne S30V, right? So you know this is premium steel, right? Premium knife. So once again, so that doesn't do anything, right? So let's see what the Fiskars axe, what this does with the Fiskars axe, right? So I'm gonna go ahead. Okay, so you see a visible scratch, right? You can kind of hear it, like you kind of hear it just doing that little filing sound, right? So you know this axe is less hard than 65, okay? So I hope you guys can see the visible. You can kind of hear biting in, okay? So that's softer than 65, okay? So that's our test subjects. Okay, so let's see what the largest does, right? So I'm gonna go, so I went ahead and polished this, because a lot of times, if you see here, you'll see a lot of filing marks, and they'll catch, and then it'll seem like it's cutting into it, but they're just catching onto those marks, right? Like sandpaper. So I went ahead and smoothed out sections I want to test hardness, and I did it by the blade, because a lot of blade makers, especially the hand forged blade makers, they'll hammer it all out, and then they'll just quench the just the blade area, which is a good way to do it, because it's okay to have this soft, but you want the blade to be hard, okay, or the hardest part of a tool like this, okay. So okay, let's see here. Okay, it's already biting. I can feel it. I can feel it resisting. So can you hear it? Okay. Okay. So you see it. You see it right there, right? It's scratching it. So that's definitely softer than 65, which I would hope it was. Okay, and then the stainless. Yeah, the stainless, it digs right in, like really easy. So yeah, it's like gouging it. So you'll see it, you see it there. So, okay, stainless is not 65. Okay, let's see what the AX-VEL is, right? So you can see it just scratching it, right? So AX-VEL is definitely not 65, which I knew. Con load, the other hand forged. Okay. Okay, so that's scratching. Okay, so let's go to 60. Okay, so this is 60 HRC. Okay. Okay, so that's scratching it the same. Okay, so you see it scratching it. So it's definitely softer than 60, which is fine. Okay, so that's scratching. Okay, and this is the AX-VEL. Still scratching, right? And then the con load. That's definitely scratching it. Okay. So let's go to 55. Okay. Yeah, so look at this. It's not, it's just skating off. Okay, so HRC 55. Mosquitoes. Okay, so HRC 55. Yeah, it's skating off. So that the largest is pretty impressive. So it's in between 55 and 60. Okay, because the 55 is kind of skating off of it. Like sometimes I can feel it biting in, but I think it's just biting into like some of this rough area on the smooth section, which is really what you want to test, right? So. Yeah, so it's gonna be, it's above 55, so between 55 and 60, okay? And let's do the stainless here, the 55. Okay, and it bites in immediately. Okay, so. Okay, so you can see it leaving scratches there, right? Hopefully. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so it's still leaving scratches. Okay, so let's do the AX-VEL. Okay. And I'm pressing pretty hard on here. Okay, let's see if it's focusing here. I'm not even looking at what I'm doing. Okay, so yeah, so if you look here, it's not scratching no more, right? You see those pre-existing scratches? See here, so if I press real hard, I'm not really making any scratches, right? So this one's gonna be, so the AX-VEL is between 55 and 60, which is what you want, like for a chopping tool like an axe or your machete. Yeah, 55 to 60 is really good. Okay, and then the con load. Let's see. So that's just skating by, right? So the con load's 55 to 62, right? So they're all between 55 and 60, which is good, except for this, right? So we're gonna go to 50. Let's see if it's at least 50. Okay. So let's see here. So I can feel it catching already. So, but we're getting close because it's semi-skating. So I'm actually thinking it's just catching on some of the filing marks. But let me see here. Let's see if we're actually making marks in a steel. I don't know. I think it might be between 50 and 55, which isn't really bad for this stainless. So if we profile it, it might actually be durable enough. So 50 and 55, I'm thinking. I'm just gonna try Try 45, see if it feels how it feels. Yeah, so the 45 definitely skates off. I don't feel it biting in at all. It's not leaving any new scratches. Okay, so look there. See if it's leaving any new scratches. I don't think so. Okay, so definitely not scientific. Okay, so between 45 and 50 for the stainless. Okay, so I'm just gonna go 55 on this axe here, see what it does. So this is a 55. I'm gonna go on this Gerber axe. So it's not making a. So the 55 doesn't leave a scratch. Okay. And then the 60 leaves a scratch. So it's between 55 and 60, which is really good for an axe. 55 and 60. Okay. So very much like the like all these knives, 55 to 60, and that's really what you want. I'm going to weigh the blades for you guys. Okay. The largesse. 1 pound 7 ounces. I'm not even going to say that because it sounds like a 4-letter word. Okay. 1 pound 6 ounces, or 1 pound 6.6 ounces. Right. Okay. The con load. All right. 1 pound 1.7 ounces. Okay. And then the AX-VEL, otherwise known as the axle. What is it called, the axle? All right, so AX-VEL. 1 pound 8.3 ounces. Okay, so it is the heaviest of the blades, despite not being bigger than the blades, right? So just for feces and giggles, let's say, why don't you just bring an axe? So even the small axe, Fiskars X15. Okay, so that's 3 pounds 5.9 ounces, right? So considerably heavier than the AX-VEL, which if we put the handle back on it, okay, so the AX-VEL, right? Oh, how are we gonna do that? Let's see, the AX-VEL. Oh, no, that's tricky. AX-VEL, 2 pounds 4.4 ounces, right? So even at that, you got considerably more reach with the AX-VEL. See, so the AX-VEL will give you definitely more reach for a pound, more than a pound less. So one of the advantages. And then I'm just gonna do a quick blade measurement for you guys, and then that should be it for this particular section here. Okay, so let's do a quick blade measurement. Okay, so the largesse is looks like cutting edge, you're looking at about 9 inches. Total length, you're looking at 13 3/4. And then yeah, it looks like the stainless one, you're looking at 8 3/4 cutting edge. And then as far as total length, you're looking at 13 3/8. So the con load, as far as cutting edge, you're looking at 8 1/8 cutting edge, and then total length you're looking at 13 1/2. So it's got a longer handle, so it's 13.5 inches. Okay, and then as far as the AX-VEL, yeah, cutting length or cutting edge, you're looking at 9 and 1/8 cutting edge, and then total length is 13 3/4. So those are the measurements. Let's go. So this is 3 3/8 at the widest. What we're going by. Mosquitoes are fierce. Okay, how tall the blade is basically. So 3 1/4 as far as the height of the blade. Con load is fairly tall, so that's 3 5/8. And then the AX-VEL is 3 1/4. So yeah, if you want more of the shovel ability, and then you might want one of these wire taller blades, right, to have more shoveling capacity. So those are things to think about. And then let's just do spine thickness real quick here. My handy dandy Harbor Freight caliper measure, right? That's better. So 7.2 millimeters. Okay. Let's go with the thickest point here. I'd say it's right there, right? So 6.7, 6.8 millimeters. So really good spine thickness on all of these. Yeah, so 7.8. Okay, spine thickness. Okay. Yeah, so doing it like this, we're looking at 6 millimeters, right? So there you go. Okay, so those are all the measurements. So things to consider, guys.